The human in the ruins. The night was cold, and the wind moved through the broken city like a ghost. Jack, a lone human soldier, walked slowly across the cracked streets, his boots echoing in the silence. The alien city was once alive with light, sound, and families. But now it was only shadows and ruins. Tall buildings were burned and broken, the walls black with smoke, and pieces of metal lay scattered everywhere. Jack could smell ash, and under that, something worse, the smell of war that never left a place once it had been touched. He carried only a small pack and a rifle, the last of his supplies. His eyes searched every corner because danger could be hiding anywhere. Yet the silence was almost heavier than battle, and in that silence, Jack felt more alone than he ever had before. As he passed what once looked like a market, he stopped. There were toys lying in the dirt, small alien figures carved from stone and wood. He picked one up, a tiny carving of a bird with wings spread. It was simple, but someone's child had held it, played with it, maybe cried for it when they had to run. Jack put the toy back down gently, his throat tight. He wondered if that child was alive or if they had died in the fire that destroyed everything here. Suddenly, he froze. There was a sound, faint, almost lost in the wind. It was not metal or stone shifting, not the creak of broken walls. It was softer, thinner, like a cry. Jack gripped his rifle and followed the sound, step by step. His boots moved through the shadows, each sound of his foot louder than before. The cry grew clearer, a voice, trembling, afraid. He pushed past a fallen wall, and in the hollow of a broken building, he saw them. An alien mother sat on the cold floor, her arms wrapped around two small children. Her skin was pale, glowing faintly in the dark, and her eyes shone with fear. The children clung to her tightly, their faces hidden in her chest. The mother's body shook as if she had no strength left. When she saw Jack, her eyes widened, and her voice broke into a whisper. "Please, don't hurt us," she begged, her words heavy with fear. Then, almost too soft to hear, she added, "Or make us your family." Jack stood still, his breath caught in his throat. He had expected fear, maybe hatred, but not this. Why would an alien mother cornered in the ruins ask a human soldier to make her family? Her voice was not angry, not full of blame. It was desperate, broken. The voice of someone who had nothing left. The children whimpered, their thin bodies trembling. Jack lowered his rifle slowly, holding his hands where she could see them. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly, his voice low but steady. But the mother did not believe right away. Her eyes darted between him and the children. Her arms pulled them closer, as if she could hide them from the whole world. Jack took a careful step forward, and then stopped. He pulled a ration pack from his bag and set it on the floor. It was the last of his food, but he pushed it toward her without a word. The alien mother stared at it, her lips trembling. The children lifted their heads, their eyes wide with hunger. Still, she hesitated, her pride and fear wrestling with her need to keep her children alive. Jack sat down a few feet away, putting his rifle on the ground beside him. He wanted her to see that he was not a threat. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the wind outside. Finally, the mother reached out with shaking hands and pulled the food toward her. She tore it open and shared it with the children first. They ate quickly, small hands clutching the food as if it might vanish at any second. The mother only watched them, not eating herself. Her eyes never left Jack, full of suspicion and something else, something like hope. Jack felt something stir in his chest, a feeling he had buried long ago. These were enemies, he told himself. Aliens, not human, but the sight of a mother feeding her hungry children, even in ruins, even in fear, felt universal. It was something no war could erase. For the first time in a long time, Jack did not feel like a soldier. He felt like a man who had stumbled into someone else's story. a story of survival, of desperation, of a family on the edge of being lost forever. The children finished eating and leaned against their mother, already half asleep. Her eyes softened, though fear still lingered. "If you stay, we live," she whispered, her voice breaking again. "If you leave, we die." Jack looked at her, at the children, at the broken city around them, and he knew this was no simple choice. The war had destroyed much. But here, in the ruins, he had found something he had not expected. Not an enemy, not a threat, but a plea, a desperate cry that was more powerful than hate. And it was directed at him. Hook. Why would an alien mother, in the middle of ruins, ask a human soldier to become her family? And what would Jack do now? Fear and silence the night pressed heavy over the ruins, and the fire Jack had built was only a small glow in the darkness. He sat a few steps away from the alien mother and her children, his rifle resting on the ground beside him. The silence between them was thick, like a wall no words could break. The children huddled close to their mother, their small bodies trembling. Their eyes wide whenever Jack moved, the mother's arms circled them tightly. Her eyes locked on Jack with a mix of fear and stubborn strength. Jack understood the look. It was the same look he had seen in human survivors, people who had lost everything, a look that said, "I will protect what little I have left. Even if it kills me." He could feel her fear, and yet he also saw her exhaustion. She was running out of strength, but still she refused to let go. The ration pack he had given them was gone. The children had eaten quickly, their hunger greater than their fear. The mother had not touched a bite, only watching them as they ate. Now she sat silent, her lips pressed together, her body shivering in the cold night air. Jack wanted to speak, to break the silence. But every word he thought of felt too heavy, so he stayed quiet, letting the crackle of the fire fill the space between them. The ruins creaked around them. Wind moved through broken windows and hollow rooms, carrying sounds that made the children flinch. Jack's eyes scanned the shadows, his soldier's instinct never sleeping. He knew danger was near. But tonight, the greater enemy was mistrust. If he could not earn the mother's trust, then he might as well walk away now. Finally, the mother spoke, her voice sharp but trembling. "Why help us, human? Your kind brought soldiers, fire, machines." Her words cut the air like a blade. Jack felt the weight of them because he could not deny the truth. Humans had fought in this war. Humans had brought death here, and maybe, in some way, he was guilty too. "I don't know," Jack answered softly. "Maybe because no one should starve in the dark." The mother's eyes narrowed, her arms tightening around the children. Her silence spoke louder than words. Jack leaned back, resting against the cold stone wall, his gaze fixed on the stars above. He remembered his own family, long gone now, taken by the same endless war. Perhaps that was why he stayed. Perhaps that was why he could not walk away from this alien mother and her children, because he saw in them what he had already lost. The younger child shifted, peeking at Jack with curious eyes. For a brief moment, their gazes met. Jack smiled. Faintly, a small, careful smile. The child hid again in their mother's arms, but not fast enough to hide the spark of curiosity. Jack let the silence settle again. Moments later, he pulled another small ration from his pack. It was dry bread, hard and tasteless, but still food. He placed it carefully on the ground and slid it toward them without speaking. The mother stared at it. Her pride burned in her eyes, but her children's hunger was stronger. She reached out slowly, snatching the bread as if it might be taken away. Once again, she gave it to the children first, her hands trembling as she broke the pieces. She did not eat, Jack noticed, but said nothing. Silence returned. But now it felt different. Not complete mistrust, not complete acceptance, but something in between. The firelight flickered across their faces. The mother's features were sharp yet fragile, alien yet familiar. She rocked the children gently as they grew heavy with sleep. Her eyes stayed on Jack, searching him, judging him. Finally, her voice came low, almost a whisper. "If you stay, we live," she said, repeating the words she had spoken earlier. "If you leave, we die." Jack met her eyes, his chest tight with the weight of the choice. He could leave now, go on alone, keep himself alive a little longer. But as he looked at the sleeping children, their small hands clutching the cloth of their mother's clothes, he knew he could not. The silence that once felt like a wall now felt like a question, and his answer, though unspoken, was already clear. Jack leaned forward, pulling his cloak. From his pack, he tossed it toward her. The mother caught it. Startled, her eyes wide, she pulled it around the children, wrapping them in its warmth. Her lips moved as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, she lowered her head, her hand resting lightly on the children's backs. For the first time, Jack thought he saw not only fear in her eyes, but something else, a fragile spark of trust. Hidden deep, the night grew colder, the ruins darker, but around the small fire, a new silence settled, not the silence of fear, not the silence of enemies, but the silence of strangers who were no longer ready to walk away. And in that silence, Jack knew his path was no longer his own. He was tied to them now, by choice, or by fate, and tomorrow would test whether that choice could keep them alive. Hook. In the ruins of a dead city, one human and one alien mother sat in silence. But the silence was no longer empty. It was the beginning of something neither of them could yet understand. The truth in the dark. The fire had burned low, its last flames flickering weakly against the black walls of the ruins. Jack sat awake, his back against a broken stone pillar, watching the shadows stretch and fade with every movement of the light. The alien mother sat opposite him, her children curled beside her, asleep at last. The night was deep and silent, but silence in ruins always carried weight. It was not empty, it was full of the things unspoken, the things lost, the things waiting to be remembered. Jack had not asked her name, and she had not asked his. They were strangers, yet bound by something stronger than introductions. He felt it in the way she clutched her children, even in sleep, as if she believed the night would steal them if she loosened her grip. And he felt it in the way her eyes lingered on him whenever he moved, full of questions but also full of walls. The fire cracked softly, and the sound drew her gaze. Her eyes met his, glowing faintly in the dark, not like human eyes, but still, filled with the same storm of grief and fear. At last she spoke, her voice low. Each word like a stone carried too long. "You wonder why we are here, why only we remain," she said, her accent sharp, her tone edged with pain. Jack nodded slowly, saying nothing, letting her decide whether to share the story or keep it buried. The mother looked down at her children, brushing a hand gently across their foreheads. "They had a father once," she whispered. "We had a people once." Her words trembled, breaking like fragile glass in her mouth. Jack leaned forward, his heart tight. He had expected loss, but not the depth of loss that was now pouring from her voice. She told him of her world before the war, a place of light and song, where families lived in great towers and fields that stretched like oceans. Her people were not warriors, not soldiers. They were builders, healers, keepers of knowledge. They believed their world would never be touched by war, but war always found its way. Raiders had come first, scavengers from the stars. They burned villages, captured families, sold the strong, and discarded the weak. Her people resisted, but they had no weapons, no armies, only hope. Then came worse. Soldiers in iron ships, some not alien at all, but human mercenaries. They had Fought alongside enemies her people could not understand. She swallowed hard, her eyes sharp on Jack. "Your kind stood with them," she said, the words heavy with blame and sorrow. Jack looked away, guilt pressing down on him like the ruins. Themselves, he did not argue, he did not deny it. He knew too well that humans had sold their strength to anyone who paid, and war did not care about honor, only about survival. He wanted to tell her he was different, that he was not one of those who brought death, but the truth was, he was. A soldier too. He had fought battles, he had fired shots, he had left scars on worlds that had never harmed him. And he had no words to clean the blood from his hands. The mother's voice broke softer now, her strength fading. "They took him," she whispered, her hand resting over her chest. "My mate, the children's father. They dragged him away. And I have never seen him again." Her eyes filled with tears that caught the firelight. Shining like broken stars, they killed the rest, burned everything. Left only ashes and screams. Her words cut through Jack like blades. He looked at the children, sleeping in fragile peace, and felt the weight of their loss. They would never see their father again. Never know the world their mother had described. For a long moment, only the fire spoke between them. Then Jack leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "I'm sorry," he said. The words small against the mountain of her pain. The mother studied him, searching his face for lies, but found none. Her shoulders sank, and she closed her eyes. "You are human," she said softly, "yet you sit here, and you give food, and you watch the dark for danger." Her lips trembled. "I do not understand." Jack wanted to tell her he did not understand either, that he had no plan, no reason. Only a feeling he could not shake. Perhaps it was guilt. Perhaps it was something deeper. Perhaps it was because... In her voice, in her broken words, he heard his own loss echoed back to him. He remembered his sister, gone years ago when war reached their home. He remembered the same plea in her eyes, the same desperation to live, and he remembered how powerless he had felt then. Unable to save her, maybe now, in this ruined city, fate had given him one more chance. The children stirred, one of them. Reaching out in sleep, their small hand brushing against Jack's boot, he froze, then slowly let his hand rest on the ground near theirs. The child's fingers curled around nothing, but they did not pull away. The mother saw it. Her eyes softening just slightly, a silence fell again. But it was not the heavy silence of strangers anymore. It was the silence of people who had spoken truths too deep to be taken back. Jack leaned back, looking into the dying fire. The ruins around them felt less empty now. Less hollow, the dark had not lifted, but inside the circle of firelight, something new had begun. Something fragile, like a seed breaking through stone, and though neither of them spoke it aloud, both of them felt it. A bond that had begun in fear, but was now rooted in truth. Hook Jack now carried their story inside him, and he knew he could no longer be only a passerby. The question was no longer whether he would help them survive, was how far he would go to protect them. The first attack the night had almost ended, but the ruins felt darker than ever. Jack stayed awake, his rifle across his lap, listening to the silence that pressed down on the city. The alien mother and her children slept close to the last glow. Of the fire, their breaths soft, their bodies curled together for warmth. For hours there had been nothing but the whisper of wind through broken walls. Yet Jack's instincts told him danger was near. He had lived too long in war to mistake quiet for safety. The first sound came like a scrape of metal against stone. Faint, almost part of the night, Jack's eyes snapped open wider. His hand tightening around his weapon. The noise came again, heavier this time, like armored feet shifting across rubble. He rose slowly, careful not to wake the mother or children. His eyes scanning the shadows, the ruins swallowed the sound. But he felt it in his bones. The enemy was close. A sudden thud echoed, followed by a low hum. Mechanical and sharp, the alien mother stirred, her eyes snapping open, fear rushing into her face at once. She clutched her children, pulling them against her chest. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Jack raised a hand to silence her, his gaze never leaving the dark passage beyond the wall. From the shadows stepped figures, tall and armored, their outlines jagged like machines, but moving with living purpose. Their eyes glowed red beneath helmets of steel, weapons in their hands humming with deadly power. Raiders, the very ones she had feared, had returned to hunt. Jack's breath came slow and steady, his mind cold as he counted them. 3, maybe 4, moving through the ruins like predators. He pulled the mother down low, whispering harshly, "Stay quiet, don't move." The children's eyes widened with silent terror, their small hands gripping their mother's arms. Jack moved away from them, slipping into the deeper shadows. His rifle ready, every step was calculated. Every breath shallow as the raiders drew closer. One stopped, scanning the ground, its weapon glowing faintly as if tasting the air for life. Jack pressed himself against the wall, his heart pounding like thunder in his chest. The raider stepped nearer, its armor clinking softly, its weapon turning toward the faint glow of the fire. Jack had one chance, one heartbeat to decide wait and risk them being found, or strike first. He chose. With a sudden burst, he swung from the shadows, rifle raised. The shot cracked through the night. Bright fire bursting from the barrel. The raider staggered back, a hole burning through its chest, sparks flying as it collapsed against the stones. The other raiders roared, their voices metallic, inhuman, their weapons lighting up with a deadly glow. The alien mother cried out softly, clutching her children tighter, pulling them back into the shadows. Jack rolled behind a wall as a beam of searing light cut across where he had stood, melting stone into liquid fire. The ruins shook with the blast, smoke and dust filling the air. Jack's lungs burned as he coughed, but he kept moving. Shifting from cover to cover, another shot rang, his bullet striking a raider's arm, tearing metal and flesh alike. The creature screamed, its voice half machine, half living horror, before it fell. The others advanced, furious now, their steps echoing like war drums. Jack's rifle clicked empty, and his stomach sank. He grabbed a piece of broken steel pipe. From the ground, gripping it tight, he had fought with less before. And he would again. One raider lunged through the smoke, taller than any man, its glowing blade raised high. Jack ducked, swinging the pipe hard across its knee joint. The creature stumbled, its weapon slamming into the stone floor with a flash of sparks. Jack drove the pipe again, shoving it through the gap in its armor. The raider shrieked and fell heavy to the ground, its glow fading. The last one hesitated, scanning the ruins as smoke drifted around them. Jack picked up his empty rifle, raising it as if it were still loaded. The raider growled, uncertain, its red eyes narrowing. For a tense moment, neither moved, silence pressing down again. Then, the creature turned, retreating into the night with heavy steps. Jack waited, listening until the sound of its armor was swallowed by the ruins. Breathing hard, he lowered the useless weapon, his body shaking with exhaustion. Behind him, the mother's voice came soft and broken. "You fought for us," she whispered, her eyes wide, her face pale with fear and wonder. Jack looked at her, the children still pressed tight against her body, their small eyes glowing with tears. "I fought because if I didn't, none of us would see the next on," he said quietly. The mother's lips trembled, her hands pulling her children closer. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Now you are part of us, whether you want it or not." Her words carried no anger, only a strange, heavy truth. Jack felt it sink into him, deeper than the wounds of battle. He had crossed a line, one he could not turn back from. He was no longer just a soldier passing through ruins. He was protector now, and protector meant family. The fire had died, smoke rising faintly from the ashes, but in the ruins of darkness, a different light had been lit. A light of survival, of choice, of fragile trust born in blood and fear. And though the night was not yet over, Jack knew their story had changed forever. Hook. The raiders would return, and stronger ones would come. But for the first time, Jack felt the weight of belonging and the danger of what it meant to protect a family that was not his own. Becoming family, the ruins were quiet again. But the silence felt different after the fight. The smoke from the burned raiders still lingered in the air, sharp and bitter. Jack sat against a wall, his chest rising heavy with exhaustion. His hands trembling from battle. The alien mother sat across from him. Her children pressed close under the cloak he had given. Her eyes never left him, filled with something new. Not only fear, not only suspicion, but something deeper. Something that looked like trust, though fragile and uncertain. The children watched him too, their small eyes wide, not with fear now, but with curiosity. One of them whispered in a tongue Jack could not understand. The mother hushed the child, but the sound carried warmth instead of warning. Jack let out a long breath, feeling the weight of what had happened. He was alive. They were alive. And the ruins had not swallowed them yet. Morning came slow, gray light. Touching the broken city, the fires of the night battle were cold ashes now. Jack stood, his muscles stiff, and looked out over the shattered streets. He knew the raiders would return, stronger, more prepared. If they stayed in the open, they would not last another night. He turned back to the mother. "We can't stay." "Here," he said, his voice low but steady. She hesitated, clutching her children tighter, her eyes scanning the shadows as if the ruins themselves held chains. "Where would we go?" she whispered, her voice heavy with doubt. Jack pointed toward the higher ground at the edge of the city, where broken towers rose like skeletons against the sky. "If we find shelter there, we can see danger coming before it reaches us." The mother studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Together they packed what little they had, scraps of food, the cloak, a broken canister of water. Jack carried his rifle, though it was nearly empty of rounds. And the children clung to their mother as they moved through the streets. The ruins were a maze of shadows and silence, but with every step, Jack walked. In front, his eyes sharp, his body ready. He was no longer only moving for himself. Now each step he took was for them too. They reached a tall broken tower by midday. Its walls cracked, but its upper floors still standing. Jack climbed first, testing the structure. Then helped the mother and her children up. Inside, the place was hollow but safe enough. A roof over their heads, a view of the streets below. The children explored, their laughter faint, nervous, but real. Echoing through the broken halls, Jack watched them. A strange feeling stirring in his chest. He had not heard laughter in years. Not since his own family was taken from him by war. Days passed, each one measured by survival. Jack hunted through the ruins, bringing back scraps of food, strange roots, and sometimes small animals. The mother prepared them, teaching him which were safe to eat, which could heal, and which could harm. At night, Jack repaired what he could, setting traps and fortifying the tower. The children grew less afraid of him, slowly inching closer each day. One of them handed him a small carved stone, a figure of their people, and Jack accepted it with a nod. The bond grew, not spoken, but lived. The mother began to speak more, telling him words in her language, teaching him small phrases. The children laughed when he spoke them wrong, their voices lighter each time. Jack found himself smiling, something he thought he had forgotten how to do. The ruins no longer felt like a graveyard. They felt like the beginning of something new. But danger never left. One evening, as the sun bled red across the sky, Jack spotted shadows moving far. In the distance, raiders, scouting again, their armor glinting faint in the light. His chest tightened, knowing it was only a matter of time. He turned to the mother. Her eyes already following his. "They will come back," he said quietly, and stronger. Her face was pale, but she only nodded, pulling her children close. "We are not strong enough," she whispered. Not alone, Jack felt the truth of her words strike deep. He was only one man, one soldier, against armies of machines and raiders. But when he looked at her, at the children, he knew leaving was not an option. They were his now, not by blood, not by choice, but by something greater he had promised. Nothing, yet everything in him had already given that promise. That night, as the children fell asleep, wrapped in his cloak, the mother sat beside him. She spoke softly, her words slow but certain. "They call you father," she said, her eyes lowering. Jack looked at the children, their faces peaceful, their small hands resting against each other. "I am not there." "Father," he said, his voice heavy. The mother shook her head, "Not by birth, but by the fire, by the fight," she whispered. Her gaze met his, steady now. "They laugh again because of you." The words struck him, leaving him silent. He stared into the darkness beyond the tower. The city stretching in ruins, but his heart no longer felt empty. Perhaps he was not only protecting them, perhaps they were saving him too. In the quiet, the children stirred, one of them mumbling a soft word in their tongue. Jack did not know its meaning, but the way the mother smiled told him it was good. Something warm, something like family. Hook. Yet outside the ruins, far across the dark plains, a new light appeared, a ship landing heavy with fire, and Jack knew the peace they had built was only the calm before another storm. The sacrifice plan, the nights grew shorter, the days sharper with tension. From the tower's broken windows, Jack could see the city's edge, and beyond it, the dark plains where shadows always moved. The raiders were not gone. They were gathering. And every day, their numbers grew. Jack counted the distant fires they lit. Red glows like hungry eyes staring back at him. It was no longer a question of if they would come, but when, inside the tower, life had taken a fragile rhythm. The children played softly with their carved stones, their laughter filling cracks in the silence. The mother kept close watch, her eyes following every sound, her hands never far from them. Jack worked through the nights, building traps from broken steel, setting alarms of wire and cans to warn them of intruders. His body was weary, his face marked by dust and sleepless nights. But he did not stop. He could not stop. One evening, the mother came to him while he sharpened a piece of broken blade. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "They are coming for me," she said. Jack froze, looking up at her, his hands tightening on the blade. Her eyes were calm but full of grief. "They do not want the children. They do not want you. They want me." Jack shook his head at once, anger rising. "No, they want all of us. They will kill or take whoever they can." The mother stepped closer, her shadow long against the stone wall. "No," she whispered. "They hunt me because I carry what they want." She pressed her hand against her chest, over her heart. Jack frowned, his mind racing. "My blood," she said finally, her voice breaking. "It carries what they desire. A code, a pattern, a strength of my people that they wish to control." Her eyes met his, hard with truth. "If they take me, they will use me, and they will destroy everything left." Jack's stomach turned, the weight of her words heavy. He had seen it before, humans and aliens alike, used as tools, turned into weapons against their own kind. The thought of her falling into their hands filled him with a cold fury. He threw the blade aside, standing to his full height. "Then, we don't let them take you," he said firmly. But even as he spoke, he felt the edge of despair. He was only one man, one rifle nearly empty, one heart carrying too much. The mother studied him, her eyes deep with sorrow. "You cannot fight them all," she said softly. "But you can save the children." Jack shook his head again, his fists tight. "No, I won't leave you. Not after everything." She stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm, trembling. "You saved us once. You gave them laughter again. You made us family. But family does not mean you die in my place." Jack felt the words cut deep. But his answer was already burning inside him. "Family means I stand between you and death," he said, his voice low, his chest heavy with the truth of it. The mother's eyes filled with tears, but she did not argue further. Instead, she lowered her head, whispering, "Then you plan to fight them all?" Jack nodded slowly, his jaw set. "I'll draw them away from here. Give you time to escape." The words felt heavy, but they were the only path he could see. He could lure the raiders into the ruins, turn the traps into weapons, make them chase him. It would be suicide, but it would by the mother and her children. A chance to flee, the mother's hands clenched at her sides, her body trembling with rage and grief. "No," she whispered harshly. "I cannot lose another. Not like this." She looked at the children sleeping in the corner, their small faces peaceful, unaware of the storm ready to break. Her voice cracked. "They already lost their father. I will not let them lose you too." Jack stepped forward, his hand resting on her shoulder, steady but gentle. "You called me part of your family," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "So let me protect my family." She looked up at him, eyes wide, tears spilling. Her lips trembled. But no words came, only silence. And in that silence, Jack knew she understood. The night deepened, the fires of the raiders burning brighter on the plains. Closer now, Jack finished his traps, lining the streets with broken glass and hidden wire. Placing fuel cans in corners that would burn when sparked, he checked his rifle. Its magazine nearly empty, but still enough for one last stand. The mother watched him, silent. Her children pressed against her side. When he was done, he sat by the dying fire, the weight of his choice heavy on his shoulders. The mother moved closer, her hand brushing his arm once more. "You do this, you may not return," she whispered. Jack looked at her, then at the children, their faces soft in the firelight. "No," he said, his voice firm. "But if I don't, none of us see tomorrow." For a long moment, the fire crackled between them. Then the mother leaned closer, her forehead resting briefly against his shoulder. Her voice was a whisper of pain and gratitude. "Then fight, but come back. Come back to your family." Jack closed his eyes, the words echoing in his chest like a promise. Tomorrow would bring fire, blood, and the edge of death. But tonight, in the ruins, he allowed himself one fragile hope. That even if he had to sacrifice everything, it would not be the end, but the beginning. Hook! The raiders were coming, their machines ready, their hunger sharp. And Jack stood prepared to give everything. Not for war, not for victory, but for the family he had sworn to protect. A new dawn the night before the storm was restless. The ruins held their breath, the air heavy with the scent of smoke and waiting fire. Jack sat on the edge of the tower, staring out across the plains where the raiders gathered. Their fires burned, like stars fallen to earth, red and angry. The sound of machines carried faintly through the wind, metallic growls echoing across the dark. They were coming, and there was no doubt they would not stop until everything was taken. Behind him, the alien mother and her children huddled close. The children clung to her cloak, their eyes wide with fear, but too tired to cry. The mother's gaze stayed fixed on Jack, her face pale in the faint glow of the fire. She wanted to speak, to stop him, but she said nothing. Words had already been spoken, promises already made. All that was left was the fight when the first light of fire beams struck the sky. Jack stood, his rifle gripped tight. He looked back at them one last time, the children trembling. The mother's eyes filled with tears she could not let fall. "Stay hidden," he said quietly, his voice steady, though his heart shook. "I'll come back." The mother pressed her forehead against the children's heads. Whispering words in her own tongue, prayers carried on broken breath. She looked up at Jack, her voice shaking. "Come back to your family." Jack turned and moved into the ruins. The traps he had built waited, wires stretched across narrow streets, glass hidden under the ash, fuel cans ready to burn. Every step was heavy. But his mind was sharp, focused. This was not just battle. This was sacrifice turned into survival. The shadows shifted ahead, armored figures moving into the city. Our red eyes glowing, weapons ready, the raiders had arrived. The first one stepped onto the wire, the crash of cans breaking the silence. Jack fired, the shot cracking through the night. The raider fell, its armor sparking as it hit the ground. Another advanced, but flames burst as a can ignited, fire swallowing the narrow street. The city lit with sudden war, shadows dancing across stone walls. Jack moved like a ghost, striking. From darkness, fading before they could answer, the raiders roared. Their weapons tearing through the ruins, beams of fire cutting stone into dust. Jack's chest burned with every breath, his rifle growing lighter with every shot. He fought with everything. Left, hands bleeding from stone, body heavy with exhaustion, yet he pressed on. Every second bought was another second for them to live. When his rifle finally clicked empty, he threw it aside. Grabbing a broken blade from the ground, the fight turned close. Steel against steel, rage against survival. One raider struck him hard, throwing him against a wall, pain exploding across his ribs. His vision blurred, but he rose again, spitting blood. The memory of the children's laughter pushed him forward. The image of the mother's eyes gave him strength where none remained. With a roar, he drove the blade deep into the raider's chest, sparks flying as it fell heavy. But Jack staggered, his knees shaking, his body near collapse through the smoke. He saw more coming, dozens now, their red eyes glowing through the ash. He knew he could not stop them all, but he had already done enough. He had delayed them, broken their front, bought the time they needed. T fell to one knee, breath ragged, vision dimming. For a moment, he thought this was his end. But then, a new sound cut through the night, a cry fierce and desperate. The mother, stepping from the tower's shadow, firelight blazing in her eyes. She held a weapon Jack had left behind, her hands trembling but steady enough. The children stood behind her, their small voices raised in a word Jack did not understand, but it carried power. Together, they faced the night, refusing to let it take him. The raiders faltered, surprised by the sudden defiance, and in that pause, Jack found one last breath of strength. He pushed himself to his feet, standing between them and the family, his body broken but unyielding. "You don't touch them," he growled, his voice carrying more power than his failing body, with the mother at his side and the children's voices rising behind him. The ruins seemed to fight back too. Flames roared higher, smoke coiled thicker, and the raiders pulled back, retreating into the darkness. For now, the city was theirs. Jack collapsed. Then, his strength finally gone. The mother caught him, her arms steady, though her body shook. Her tears fell hot on his face, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Don't leave us. Don't leave your family." The children pressed close, their small hands gripping his torn clothes. Refusing to let go, Jack's vision blurred. But he forced his eyes open. Looking at them, he managed a weak smile, his voice broken but certain. "I'm here. I'm not leaving." Morning came slow, sunlight breaking across the ruins. The fires of the night were gone, leaving only smoke and silence. Jack lay against the wall, wounded but alive. The mother sat beside him, the children curled against them both. For the first time, the ruins felt different. No longer only shadows and death, but a home, fragile, new. Built not on blood alone, but on choice. The mother turned to him. Her voice soft but strong. "Make us your family," she said, not in fear now, but in hope. Jack closed his eyes, the words sinking into him like sunlight after endless night. "Yes," he whispered. His voice faint, but steady. "We are family." And as the dawn rose over the broken city, a soldier, an alien mother, and two children stood together, no longer alone in the dark, but bound by something stronger than war, bound by the promise of a new beginning. Hook. The war was not over. The raiders would return, but in the ruins of a fallen world. A human and an alien family had risen together, and that was the dawn of everything new.